Good evening, everyone. I join you today via the magic of Zoom because we think an abundance of caution these days is a good idea. I also happen to believe that wishful thinking should not temper reason and that public health concerns should always trump political insanity. So even though my wife and I have been vaccinated, there is a good possibility that we've been exposed to COVID. So far, I'm experiencing rather mild symptoms, and that's why I'm here and you're there. That said, I also believe our hearts and minds can overcome mere technological limitations we might encounter this evening. So it's with the greatest of pleasure that I join Lisa and the Middletown Art Center in welcoming you to the second in this series of interviews and performances that are called The Sounds of Liberation. And they're sponsored by the Middletown Art Center with funding through California Humanities. Tonight, we are graced to have Gloria Scott join us. Gloria is literally a legendary figure, both from the golden age of soul music and from this age when she's a master of music from the soul. And I can go on and on about her career, but I wish to say that before we begin that in the process of preparing this series, I've had the privilege of getting to know this remarkable, gifted, huge-hearted woman that I now consider a friend. So tonight, you will all get to know her a little bit, and for that, you will also be privileged. Gloria, welcome to this forum.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I had no idea that anybody even knew I was here, but so be it. It's great. I love it.
I'm afraid I might look like the Wizard of Oz on the screen there, but I want to thank you for agreeing to participate. I want to thank you for your flexibility and courage to go out a little bit beyond your comfort zone and rely on computers and photons to make this evening possible. So, Gloria, as I told you before, please just let me know if I touch on a subject that you don't feel comfortable about talking about. Just raise your hand or scream at me or whatever and get my attention.
Got it.
For the audience, wherever you are and whenever you are, this is not a political event. We're not here to advance a particular view about race or society. We're not interested in making anyone feel uncomfortable. These kinds of discussions about racial issues in our society are, by their nature and unfortunately, triggering for many. But we encourage you to take care of yourselves emotionally. That said, the things that Gloria will tell us are based upon the experiences of her own life, no one else's. I urge you to listen with open hearts and open minds. That's why we're here tonight. So Gloria, what do you say? You want to get started? Are you ready?
I'm ready for you.
Okay. Well, the first and most obvious question is, how do you identify racially or ethnically or culturally?
How do I identify?
Yeah.
I kind of wish this world were we could look at each other and not see color and just love one another because of who they are. And I don't know if that's possible because I think a lot of people have revolved from that era of thinking that they're better than somebody else, and I don't think that's a good way to think about anything, because we are God's creation. We're all a work of art. God made us. We are just, what's that word? Wonderfully made. And you're a work of art. You're a work of art. I'm a work of art. And look at this beautiful art here. everybody has something inside of them that could really be creative and just make you just so feel so wonderful about what you've created. And I think everybody should be trying to do that instead of trying to, make you think that you're better than somebody else because you might have a different color skin. And I don't think that anybody in this whole wide world can say that one race is smarter than the other. It's impossible because there are so many brilliant people in every race. And I don't think we're the human race. We're the human race. And it's too bad that some people are still thinking the way they do, and they're stuck and they don't even know it, but they are.
I have to say that it was exactly 58 years ago today that Martin Luther King made his very famous "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington. And I think about that. I thought about that today. I wrote about it. But so if I'm getting from you, you consider yourself a citizen of the world. I know I identify myself racially, even though I know this is a fiction and I know that there's no scientific validity to it. I identify myself as a Black person. Do you do so, or are you that citizen of the world?
I didn't hear all of that question.
Yeah, that's because I was speaking fast. Do you hear about Martin Luther King?
Yes.
58 years ago. So I identify myself racially, even though I know that's not scientific, as a African American, a Black person. What do you do that? Do you identify yourself as a Black person?
Oh yeah. I mean, they put me in this box and I am. I'm proud to be.
Yeah.
Who I am, who I'm is, and it's hey, I'm so proud of being. They try to tell us that we were ugly and all this stuff, but those are bullies. I think people like that are bullies, and they're adult bullies.
Yeah. So the question, when did you first recognize this notion of a racial identity? Were you a young person? When did you?
We were living in Houston, Texas. Well, outside of Houston, but my mom would sometimes let us go on the bus to, I don't know where I was going, but I remember I stopped at this bus stop and there was a little drinking fountain. There were two, and one said white and one said colored. And I just went to the white one and drank out of it. And I looked around to see if anybody was looking, but I just didn't, I must have been very young at that age I wasn't afraid to do that, but I knew that then that there was some separation. I learned more about it as I got older. But when we lived in Texas, I think that there was segregation, and we kind of just stayed on our block. But back then, people had businesses. Black people had their own businesses, and it was kind of better in a way. But yet, some people think that they have to hold us back in order to make themselves bigger, or I don't know why people do this, but it's like, and they're still in that era of just ignorance, really. Yeah, I mean, and you can't really say anything good about it. What can you say? It's still happening. We just changed hats. Back then, it was the Ku Klux Klan had those. What do they call them? Hoods.
Hoods. Yeah.
They just changed hats. Now it's the prison system. They enslaved us in prisons, and I know everybody knows this, but Black people are some of the greatest entrepreneurs in this world. And they have made, we can take something, make nothing and make something out of it, no matter what it is. And we've done that over and over, over and over. And they take everything away, you know. We had to, and I'm not saying I think it was a good thing, but sometimes they wouldn't let Black people work. And they couldn't make money to take care of the family. So they started using, you know, they saw an opportunity to make money selling drugs. That is not the way to go. But what else could we have done that that would solve the issue? But time after time, they've taken that away and then use it to make money themselves. So this is kind of a cruel world when it comes to things like that. But I have found that I have created my own little world, and I have people in my world that are not prejudiced, and maybe the ones that are prejudiced, I don't really talk to them as they're just not welcome in my world, and I don't know why but something is repelling those kind of people away from me. But I know it exists. I know it's there, and as I said before, I think they're just kind of stuck in a hole. Yeah.
You know, Gloria, you know, when we had dinner a little while ago, I told you about a story where I was young at the time, and my parents would travel through the South, and I could read, so I would see all these signs that would be for coloreds and whites, like you were talking about. My parents, I would ask them, you know, I could read, I could ask them, well, what does this mean? What is this? And my parents told me, well, that's where people do their laundry.
That's what?
That's where my parents told me that's where people do their laundry.
Mm.
And so I grew up thinking that people in the South are really clean because they're doing their laundry everywhere you could imagine. And so my parents did this shielding for me. You were just talking about the environment that you lived in. You drank out of the white fountain. Can you tell us what your parents did, or what your community did to shield you and other young kids from the pretty harsh realities of the Jim Crow South?
Well, my parents wouldn't allow us to say yes, sir, and no, sir.
Mm.
We were taught to say yes and no. And sometimes my mother might have to change her voice when she's calling somebody, and if they were white, she'd have to change her voice so she could sound white, because sometimes, and that's still happening. I was looking for an apartment at one time, and a very dear friend of mine, she noticed that nobody was answering the calls, and so she called, and she's Caucasian, and immediately the phone was picked up, gave the address and all these things. So you know, and that was just like before I moved here, was like 4 years ago. And so it's just still happening. It's tiring, really. I'm tired of it. But you know, we have to do more than just talk about it.
Yeah.
And I have a dear friend that I brought with me. He's starting a program to teach young men and women, whoever wants to learn. Everybody's not going to want to learn the same thing, but he has a program where he's teaching drywall. Mm. He is doing a very good job of getting young men to get a trade, because you don't really learn that in school. You know, and what in college, you still have to find something to do that you can that can get you through college. And my parents, you know, I wanted like a lot of lessons. I wanted piano lessons, I wanted voice lessons, but we couldn't afford it.
Mhm.
So I just taught myself, you know, kept singing over and over, same songs over and over. And I got myself out of that, you know, I just did what God gave me. I used what God gave me to to build my life around. But some people are just so depressed about how they get rejected
Mhm.
because they
Mhm.
can't find a way to get out of that ism that is just not great. It's depressing. And sometimes, you know, it's hard, even if it's not because of prejudice, you know, it's hard. Life is hard. And I think Black people have really are so resilient. They have, and I mentioned this before, we make a way out of no way. We can take a mess and turn it into a message. And it's just, they've really caused us to be stronger people.
I I love that. I never heard that. Make a mess and turn it into a message. Um, yeah, I just want to also say something that that might want to that might provide some context for people. You were talking about that voice that your mother would use. Many people do not understand that in the Jim Crow era, it was against the law for a Black person to embarrass a white person.
Or to read and write.
Right? I mean, you know, those were the rules. And many people don't know those rules. My uncle, I told you this story about my uncle when we last met, about how he's still nervous around white people, especially white women, because he'd be playing in clubs and he would just run away from a white woman who would come anywhere near him because the rules were if you could get yourself lynched that way. So that that was the world you lived in, right?
When are we going to grow up?
Well, you know, this we talked about the messages that you received about race as a child. It sounds like your parents and your family didn't really talk about race much. It was a lived experience. Were there things that were said or told to you? I mean, my mother used to say stuff like, well, God don't like ugly. That was her. That was her. That was her thing. That was her way of answering something that would be bad. What can you think of circumstances or things that your parents would tell you?
You know, my parents, we kind of raised ourselves. My parents had 9 kids. They both worked like dogs, you know, to raise us. And you know, they were always working. And I know my
Mm,
father used to, they're both cooks. And
mhm,
my father used to work at this place called Day and Night Barbecue. And all the boys, when we grew up and got out of high school and came back to visit, they would tell me how what a mentor my father was to them. And I was like, well, he didn't talk to us. But he made his life was at work. So
mhm,
he helped as many people as he could while he was at work. And then he'd come home and go to sleep, and he had 2 jobs. I remember I always had 2 jobs. Daddy, and we would love to have dinner with my dad on Tuesday, every Tuesday night. It was his only off night. And we never really talked about too much prejudice. We really,
mhm.
but I learned that how the world really is. Um, when I was with Ike and Tina Turner, she said, when we go in here, if they tell us they're not going to serve us, we're just going to walk out. We're not going to make a fuss. We're just going to leave. And sure enough, they didn't want us to eat there. And then I went to the bathroom and I couldn't even go in. It was just so bad. And So, but they look at her, look what she did with her life. She overcame a lot of abuse in her own family, with 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 Ike, and he's the reason I left. But because I could see that, and it's just like Black people have had hard lives, but we we can change things by how we think, the way we think. The most thing that we think is what's going to happen, And I think Black people have just kind of separated themselves from all that and just live their own life. And then you come in contact with some wonderful people that that can help with a movement to just be, create a new world. And that's that's what's happening now. We don't hang out with people that 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 are going to say, you're ugly, we want to hang out with people who lift us up. Kind of tune out some of that stuff, but you can't tune it out. You can't tune out everything. You can't tune out how police brutality against men, especially, and women, is just, you can't really omit. You can't say that didn't happen. And it's kind of sickening. I'm not feeling very well right now.
I that was where I was going. I was wondering about that because I know myself, as a Black man living in a white society, one of the things I didn't do was a lot of times I did not want to talk about race. I felt vulnerable. I didn't want to talk to the people that I knew about how I felt, because I did feel vulnerable, and sometimes I felt that it would not make me a target, but it would draw attention to me in a way that would like remind people that I'm not like them. Do you feel that vulnerability? Have you always been open about talking about your racial experiences, or is this a new thing for you too?
Well, I know a lot of times people just do things and say things, and what can you do about it? I went to Sunnyvale High School and they wrote on my locker, "Go back home, you Black bitches." And to me, it just kind of broke my heart, because I wanted everybody to like me, but everybody didn't. And I never found out who did it, but it was very discouraging. I didn't want to go to school anymore.
Mm.
And who would do something like that? I never got to meet a person that would tell me face to face that that's how they felt about me. And it's just, life is hard enough without that.
I understand. I've had that experience myself.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, I've had that experience where I go and I find I found my book strewn out on the floor with Uncle Tom written in it. It's like, what are you supposed to do about that? But so I have been saying that that Black people may be implicit in our oppression when we don't share our stories like we are now. That if we don't speak out, talk about these things, then we are complicit in that oppression. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, we do need to talk about what we're gonna do about it. We already know what it is and what's been done. How can we build up our young Black men so that they don't feel left out? They need training. We need to, no matter what somebody else thinks, we need to work. And we need to get put down about everything. And I think there need to be more programs for training people. The churches, what, you know, Black people have been very spiritual. It's brought us through a lot of turmoil and hurt and pain, but some of the churches could do more.
Mm,
And especially the mega churches, you know, they not just Sunday, but what are you going to do during the week to help people, you know?
Yeah.
And some of the people that don't go to church need to be helped.
mm.
And that's something that we really need to work on, because the world's going to keep going on. And I don't know, I don't want the world to be run by bigots, but you know, they keep trying. They keep trying to run the world, but I just don't think it's going to happen. God's not going to let that happen. And yeah, and that's I've been doing a lot of gospel music lately, rather than the R&B, but I like all kinds of music, and music has really helped me overcome a lot of things. But what are we going to do about people who don't have that gift? We need to bring their gifts out, their talents out, so that nothing can they can't take that away. You know, no matter what we do, we still have our inner beings, and we still have to not think about what happened so much and expand on what we're going to do about it.
So, I'm sorry.
I think that's a really important thing that we have to do. We have to come up with some ideas to make this world a better place.
Yeah, amen. So let me ask you, how does singing make you feel as an artist in the world? How does it, where does that work? How does that fit into your world? And when did you become attracted to becoming a vocalist? You said earlier that you would sing and sing, but what was it? What was that spark that said, I think I could go on stage?
We always had babies in the house. And I remember when we sang lullaby to one of the younger kids, and I automatically harmonized. I don't know where I got it from, but that was the first time I noticed that I was interested in singing. We had, me and my sister, my oldest sister, oh my God, she could have had a scholarship to study opera in Italy, but she didn't go. I think she got pregnant.
Oh, really?
She didn't go, but voice, oh my God. She sang, we went to Universal Studios one year, and she sang, You Are So Beautiful.
Mm.
She played it back, and I cried because she sang so beautifully. And she could have been an opera singer, but she sang in church. She did a lot of singing in church. And I kind of forgot what the question was.
Oh no, it was several questions, but one of them was, how does singing make you feel as an artist in the world? Does it bring the world closer to you? Is it a way that you can reach out? I think being an artist means that you love a lot. It's a way to love the world. How does singing make you feel?
I was guided, led to sing. I'd just be somewhere and sing a song, and then the next thing I know, that's what happened with Sly. He played at a high school dance, and it was called Sly and the Mojo Men at that time, before Sly
Mojo
and Stone. And my friend said, she can sing. So he said, come on up here and sing. And I sang, and then he started taking me to all the dances in the Bay Area. And it just seems like I was just led to sing. I met Ike and Tina Turner. They took me to Los Angeles the same night I met them.
What? Oh, really?
They did. I remember saying, bye, mama. And it just went on and on and on. And I'm just still singing, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm not a spring chicken.
So do you consider yourself more of a performer than a composer or songwriter?
Mm, I think I'm both.
Ah,
I think I'm both.
because there's that moment in music when things kind of pivoted from you singing what a composer or songwriter wrote, kind of like a Sammy Davis Jr. kind of person who would sing, or what other people wrote, and did that beautifully. O.C. Smith is another one I can think of. I don't think he wrote many of his own work. And then there was that shift in the 60s that really came about, where it was the era of the singer-songwriter. So I was just wondering, I know you've written a good many songs. So that's the question. Is it's equal for you being both a performer and a songwriter? Because most of us know you as a performer.
I think I've developed from a singer to a songwriter, singer-songwriter. And when I first met Barry White, I thought I was going to be, using my songs, but he wanted me to sing his songs.
Ah.
But he left me a legacy. He really put a lot of work into my album, and it wasn't a great big success. Could have been, but I think I just love writing. I write every day, just about, and it's not always a song. Sometimes it's just writing inspiration from other writers, and I'm just enjoying music in every way. And sometimes I'll just take a song and make it my own. And sometimes, and people say, well, she changed the words to that, but it sounded better. And it's just interpretation,
Well, this writing about music, writing music, composing, songwriting, it's not something that most people know about you, but I'm just wondering if this is one of the things we're talking about is how race affects your career, how race affects your art. And this might be a good place for us to listen to the recording that you brought. That maybe you can play that, and that describes your feelings about race and music. Is this something you want to share with us, and then maybe tell us a little something about what we're going to hear before we hear it? Maybe you can.
Well, this song, I didn't write the song, but I've been to Germany like this. This year will be my 14th year. I get to go there every year, and they presented the song to me, but it wasn't really, to me, I didn't really like it because it was a bass solo in there. I'm like, that should be words in there.
Oh.
And I actually came up with some more lyrics to the song that had already been, it's been said, some of the things I put in the song have been said many times over, like, love your neighbor as yourself, help those who are in need of help. Who's to say your life is more than mine? Love is the answer. So that's called Promised Land. And it just turned into like I think it should be a national anthem. It's just that good. And it's talking about people coming together and walking together and talking together about it. So well, credit for writing part of the lyrics, after, even though it had already been published before. So kind of changed it to my song.
What's it?
I love it. Yeah.
What's it called?
Promised Land.
All right. And is this the one that you're going to sing for us?
Yeah, that's one of the songs. Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of thought it should be the last one, but that's okay.
Oh no. Which? that's fine. What, you have another song that you had for us, right?
Promised Land. Yeah, we're gonna do that one. I'm gonna stand up. Thank you. And if you feel like dancing, why not? Oh yeah. I want to dance. Yeah, yeah, yeah. People all over the world just want to be free. Free from violence and no more crying in the street. One day, we'll all be free. Brothers and sisters, one day we'll all be free. Fighting, no more violence, no more crying in the street. And the angels from above fall down and spread their wings like doves. Where we'll walk hand in hand, brothers and sisters, we're gonna make it to that promised land. Yeah, 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 promised land. Yeah, you and I, we will walk the land as one, yes, one. We must make a stand. And the angels from above fall down and spread their wings like doves. Well, we'll walk hand in hand, brothers and sisters, I know that we can. Don't you wanna go to that promised land? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Promised land. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Promised land. Walking together and talking together, we can live as one under God's great sun. We gotta make this world a better place. Make this world a better place. You and I. Yeah. You gotta love your neighbor as yourself. Help those who are in need of help. Who's to say your life is more than mine? Love is the answer, no one left behind. And the angels from above fall down and spread their wings like doves. Where we walk hand in hand, brothers and sisters, I know that we can. We can live as one. Walking together, talking together. We gotta make this world a better place. Make this world a better place. You and I. You and I. No quality, no poverty, justice and liberty. Happy just to be alive. Well, we're more than just survive in that promised land. Don't you wanna go to that promised land? Yeah, yeah. Woo. I wanna go. Thank you so much. Woo. Amen.
I have to confess, little while ago, when we were all setting all this up, somebody, Gloria can make yeah, yeah, yeah sound really good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You say yeah, yeah.
Never heard it sound that good before. That was great, Gloria. Thank you. And hey, this is like live performance, and we got to see what made you who you are.
All right, thank you. I love singing that song.
Um,
It'll be a hit.
well, you know, are we ready? So I want to spend a little time talking about your career now, and how you were affected in many ways by that. And in an earlier conversation we had, you said that to get your music out in the world, you had to pay rights instead of money because
Yep.
all the steps to doing that were so expensive. Can you talk about that?
Well, the music business is kind of like I don't know how to say this, but it's the same thing over and over again. The some artists are so excited about just singing, they didn't really take care of business back then, and I was one of them. And I thought that you just, sing and they'll take care of you, but they don't do that. And it's not necessarily all white people that do it. They do it a lot, but there's, they just kind of take advantage of artists sometimes. And I think the rappers, as some, I don't necessarily like all rap, but they seemed like the first ones who really took having their own record labels and doing their own.
Mm-hmm.
And artists have to really think about this. There should be schools about teaching people in the music business how to take care of. It's not enough schools to do that. Should be taught. There's so many musicians everywhere I've gone. Even this little town here, there's some great musicians everywhere I've gone, and some children don't get the opportunity to even. And sometimes children don't even know that they should practice every day. And then when they get older, they say, "Oh, I should have practiced," But in my career, I think I've been blessed. I didn't really want to be a star. I just want to sing, and do a show and get people to sing in the background and do songs I really love. And I'm still trying to do that. I want to do that. And tonight, I wish I had a couple of singers with me to do this gospel song that I want to do for you. And it's called "Where Would I Be Without God on My Side?" And I think since I've been singing, it's been leading me up to doing more positive songs and songs that are inspiration, the gospel. And there's a lot of inspirational music out there. And I think most of the songs I've been writing lately have been on that in that genre of inspirational music. And my career, it could have been better if I had known the business better. I'm not going to try to say I'm all that, but I could have been a lot more with the music business under my belt. My parents didn't really, think that, they didn't push me in that direction. I kind of pushed myself because that's what I wanted to do. And I'm kind of selfish like that, I guess. I want to do what I want to do, but it's
Gloria,
it's okay.
Gloria, what would you have done differently if you were able to do that? What are the big things that you would have done differently?
I would have had a show, my own show. I did, someone do that in places I've been traveled, but not enough of my having my own production company. But I'm just, it's never too late. it's never too, you're never too old to start.
Okay.
I'm 80 and I'm still trying to say, you know.
Yeah, like, you're not supposed to tell us. Hey, look, I'm gonna take you back. I'm gonna take you down memory lane. Okay, I've done some research. Your first recording was "I Taught Him" by Gloria Scott and the Tonettes, which was written and produced by Sylvester Stewart, better known as Sly Stone.
I was
17. That recording was released in 1964.
Yep.
So that relationship set a pattern of collaboration with producers, and it's just, we were talking about, it's just on the cusp of the singer-songwriter era that we were talking about. So my question is, how much did you rely on producers to bring the musical ideas you had into the world?
Well, back then I did rely on them,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm becoming a producer myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, what were the problems that you had with such a producer? Like, for example, if you wanted to experiment on your own, like experiment in your own way, as opposed to what a producer or label wanted, did you?
A lot of times, a producer they want to take your song and take it home and then work on it, and I should be there, and that's what's been happening with my music that I've written, is that I did not keep control of my songs, and it's not too late. I've done some of my songs have been done, by different musicians several times over, and I have some better versions than other versions, but I just want to see what I can come up with. I wish I had my own little recording studio at home.
You can come to my recording studio anytime you want to.
Oh my God, I'm so upset about you not playing the cello.
I know. But
it resonates in your soul. It just does something. I just feel like, oh my God, this is so healing.
The best people are cellos.
I'm looking forward to it. So it's not too late.
So you told me that your creative process is to write and then edit for clarity. But along the lines of what we were just talking about, you've also told me that many times when you'd leave for the night and come back the next day, to engineers and producers, it completely changed your music. Why did that happen?
Well, the song that we were going to do together, they had changed the song, and I said, "That's not my song. I don't want you to touch it again. Don't leave it alone." And they did, because that wasn't,
when you had that kind of assertiveness about your artistic vision, was it sometimes misinterpreted as aggressiveness or even ingratitude? Did you find that as well?
Well, I think producers think that you're just a singer, and I know I recorded Promise. They recorded Promised Land music, the music in England, but they recorded the vocals here. And a dear friend of mine, I just met him because of the song, and the guy who was producing my album that's coming out, he said, "Wow, I'm glad I wasn't there."
Oh.
And I thought to myself, I'm glad you weren't either, because they sometimes, like I put a rap on one of the songs, not a rap, but like it sounded like a poem. He says, "I didn't want to rap there." I said, "You haven't even heard it. How can you say you don't want it?" And, it's just kind of like nothing more said. And and I think it's a spiritual lead to do something on your own and see what happens, or just take charge of your own songs and your own melody and just do what you want with it. And it's okay to collaborate. It really is. We're going to collaborate on some songs, and it's okay, but I want to be there when they're making it. So no, that ain't right. That's not right.
But I'm going to take you. Yeah. Look, I'm going to take you back again. As I understand it, Barry White barely delivered on his 7-year contract to produce your only solo album. It was called What Am I Gonna Do?
Mm-hmm.
And a single, Just As Long As We're Together in My Life, There Will Never Be Another. And that reached the top 20 on numerous record charts in 1974. And I, this was done while Barry White was working on his first solo album. And it was only the second album released by the then new Casablanca Records. Your single from that album peaked at number 14 on the Hot Dance charts, number 16 on Billboard, Hot Soul Singles, and in the US R&B. It was played on Soul Train. Now, I know you're not going to brag, but that was an amazing accomplishment. And we're talking about, in some ways, systemic racism and, how does this all work? So my question is, do you believe the struggle to get that Casablanca label off the ground contributed to a lack of attention to marketing and sales of your record?
I don't know. I think Barry had gotten so big, and he just kind of, left me standing there with the unfinished album. And he did a good job, though. He really did. He spent a lot of money. And I think if I had, and this is honest to God truth, I think if I had taken my own product, that product that he left me, my own people, it would have been, that's what I should have done. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. And, but I'm still creating, and and a lot of people say, oh, you should, I can't blame him. I really don't.
Well, your second album was with one of my favorite arrangers, H.B. Barnum. I listened to him when I was a kid, and he was one of the reasons why I became a composer. I wanted to compose like him. And that was recorded. Am I correct? That album was recorded, but it wasn't released on the Casablanca label.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So what was the impact of that on your career?
Well, I kind of drifted away from the music business for a long time.
Oh.
But I only hurt myself. I was upset with Barry because he didn't do this. But, and like I said, you have to take your own career into your own hands. And you can't depend on people to do what you should do. And there should be more performing arts schools. And I love this particular art center because there's so much beauty here. And how would you know unless you set up a place where they can come and be creative? I don't think they could have done it at home, but maybe some of them did. But I'm sure that this place really brought a lot of people out of their comfort zone,
Well,
sometimes I just sit and watch TV, but I could be recording, I could be writing a song, playing the piano, practicing. And that's what people need to be inspired. And that's what places like this really inspire people to come out of their comfort zones and create some art, and no matter what it is. I actually love beading, and I've done some big pieces. One necklace I made, it took me a whole year to make it, but it's like you can't do all this stuff. You have to kind of pick one. Yeah. And it's hard sometimes not to. I wish I had time to do everything.
Let's talk about your musical philosophy. I mean, once when we met, you said, and remember, I told you I wrote this down. I said I was going to use it. You said everyone must make a work of art out of their lives, whatever we do. Remember, I told you I was going to write that. I did write that down. I chose I'm going to use it. This is exactly the right time to use it. But would you consider that to be a philosophy of music and of life? Is that kind of your musical philosophy, or is that getting close?
We're all capable of that kind of um, creating art, no matter what it is. That, everybody has different talents that they they can present to the world, and it may be writing a, a a grant to get money to help somebody who's got some talent and they can't really do it because they don't have the funds. And there just has to be more ways to empower people.
When we were talking, um, this idea of making art out of your lives, um, we talked a little while ago about this, and I made the argument that much of the music that Black people have done is music of liberation. And I'm thinking now, especially about rap artists who tell us what the world is like for them.
Mm.
And the music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, that was a kind of a idealized view of romance or whatever. I mean, things are a little edgier and biting a bit. What is your thinking about art as a way of describing life? Do you think that these rap artists are on the point, and that they can do good social good along with the more raunchy stuff that they say?
Well, it's music has a way of changing. And I remember my dad said it was a song called, I forget the song, but it had funky in it.
Mhm.
It just was like, they said funky. Oh my, that was terrible. If he was here now to hear what they're saying on these, you know, and I think some of it's very degrading. Um, and that's not my kind of music. But it's like, how can you stop progress? Can't do it. It's going to change. Music is going to change. It's going to change in different, all kinds of ways. But but you can still keep creating. And I'm never going to stop creating as
Mhm.
long as I can sing. And I, I I think that rap rappers, they're I guess they're just telling you about they're telling their story.
But
Some of them are just being downright just negative in degrading themselves and women. And but I was listening. Gary was listening to some Christian rap music, and one of the things he says, working on the inside. What was it? He's working on the inside, something on the outside, and it's really good. I really liked it. I have to listen to that some more.
so, Gloria, I think that's a good segue. Um, is there something else you want to play for us? Sing before we
It's a
conclude?
gospel song. It's called "Where Would I Be Without Music and God."
Very good. Let's listen.
This is funny because I was trying to remember the song from me and the Scott sisters used to sing this song together, and a few months ago I couldn't remember it, but it all came back to me. And when Clovis said he wouldn't be able to be here with us, this song, I said that's why I had come up with the song. Wait a minute. Had it not been for the Lord on my side, tell me where would I be? Had it not been for the Lord on my side, tell me where would I be? Where would I be? Kept my enemies away, sunshine on the cloudy day. He grabbed me in the cradle of his arms when he knew I'd be sheltered and scarred. Oh, every day, nothing but the Lord on my side. Tell me where would I be? 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 Yeah. Hallelujah. Thank you. It was so much fun.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you so much. Is there is there a is there another song you wanted to do, or is that it?
That was it.
Oh,
Okay, so
Okay.
from the man in the Wizard of Oz thing, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope you've enjoyed this conversation. Are there any questions that you have in the audience that you'd like to ask of Gloria?
Yeah, there we go. Question number one. How did you end up here?
It's kind of well, I lived in Guam, little bitty tiny island, Philippines on one side, and Japan, and the little dot in the middle was Guam. And I had a band there. We had a blues night, and one of the players was a bass player, and he was in the Navy. So every now and then he would come and he'd play with our band. And I didn't get in touch. I was out of touch with them for a long time. And I was talking with his wife. We became friends over the phone after I met them in 1990, I think it was. And so I was looking for a place, and she was trying to help me find a place. We even got together with some girls, and we was all talking about how we were going to get me a place. I'm going through the same thing again. But then all of a sudden she said, come here, I have a place for you. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me about it before? She said, because it wasn't available. So when I saw it, I like it. And that's how I ended up here. I think it was a spiritual thing. It was, I was led here spiritually.
Tell us a little more about that.
Well, I just think that in our lives, we don't even know that we're spiritually led, but sometimes because we don't get that voice, but something inside of us knows. And I just let the Spirit lead me sometimes. Sometimes I resist. I'm not always on target with listening, but I know that God has a hand in my life. And I think that's how I ended up here. And I kind of like it. Every time I go back to the Bay Area, I'm like, I gotta get out of this traffic. Oh my God, it's not, I don't like it. And now it's getting a little bit busier here now, but that's okay. I still like it.
Sabrina was going to read one of the questions from the chat.
Hmm.
Yes, there are. Can you hear me? First, I should ask. Yes, great. There are about 12 of us in the Zoom audience, including Clovice. So thank you for allowing us to join you from our homes. We had a nice, enthusiastic response to your song, your first song, Gloria, where Elliot and Magdalena commented that it was very lovely to see you turn on as you sang. We got to see that gift of yourself in that. So thank you for that. And there were two questions from them. One was, how has the journey been for you turning from a singer-songwriter into a producer at this late time in your career, at this later age? How has that been for you?
Well, it's really coming. It hasn't happened like I'd like it to. But it's in the making. And I think Clovis is going to be a big part of that, allowing me to be a part of his. And I'm really looking forward to it because he has something that his kind of producing collaborated with me, I think will be good.
Yeah. Well, that actually starts to answer the second question they had, which is, how do you produce albums from Lake County and then promote them? And you mentioned your new, relationship with Clovice, but
Surprised. I think things are just kind of going that way because, like I said, I recorded the music in England, and two of the songs we recorded here in Lake County. So it's happening. I mean, and I think Zoom is kind of getting that way too. We just have to. Technology is changing. It's never going to be the same as it was just last year, and I'm kind of trying to keep up, but
you seem to be doing just fine keeping up.
I'll just tag along.
Well, I just wanted to see if I understood that right, that it's really about partnerships, finding people you can make music with and who can help you produce, but also the technology, not being welcoming it and finding new ways to use it. Are those the two aspects of Lake County artistic life that you think are going to help make you a producer from here?
The main thing I got out of that question is that collaboration.
Yeah.
Who wants to produce alone? It's just, I mean, I could do all the voices, I could do this, but I want people to join in, and I can't wait to find more singers because I wanted. This song has a lot of background. It could have been there.
A lot more.
I heard you.
Well, I know that one of the things Clovice wants to do in the future is to make a new musical work out of these conversations based on this. So collaboration is part of it. And I'm just going to leave the Zoom audience spokesperson role by the last comment that came from Janice Tim, saying that I think Gloria plus Clovice would be magical. So we look forward to seeing that in the future. So thank you, Gloria.
You never know what God has in store. Who would have thought that that's why I came here? Maybe this is it.
Yeah, you never know.
But the way I think so, because when he picked up that cello, and I already knew it was going to happen, and we talked about it like we were going to do it at the Juneteenth, but it happened just perfectly, and I just love that cello. It's something else. Oh my God.
We are going to do a fundraiser with the two of them. Trust me. So I'd like to know if any of you have any questions for Gloria or Clovice. Yes.
I can't hear anything.
He would like to know if living here in the in Lake County as opposed to the Bay Area has been any better or worse? As a Black person, yes. Thank you.
I try not to think about it like that. I really don't think I do. I've never thought about how different it is here or there being Black, but it's there. I know it is, but, and sometimes it's better to think about what we're gonna do instead of what, I don't know. I just don't, and maybe I'm escaping reality, but I think we bring our own lessons to our lives, and everything that we come into contact with or happens to us is something there to learn. And even if it's about being prejudiced, what can you say to a person that you feel is being prejudiced towards you? Do you just let it go, or do you fight? No, but it's really there. But I think I'm surrounded by the people more like myself, and like you people here. Yeah. And I think we have to separate ourselves from those kinds of people. I think God is going to separate us from those kind of people. I don't think they'll be in the promised land. Amen. I know they won't be.
Anybody else have any questions for Gloria? Gigi.
Hi, Clovice, Gigi. I was just wondering, the initial event was talked about liberation. So I was just wondering how that fits into this, dialogue and interview and performance for you. If there's anything more about that, I feel like I want that piece.
In other words, it sounds like, why did we call this the Sounds of Liberation? Right, Gigi? Yeah.
I think I can address that. I was in seminary for the last 3 years, and I did a lot of changing as a human being. I saw things a little bit more clearly, deeply, and one of the things that happened to me was that I
like we were going to do it at the
can you hear me?
I heard somebody else.
Oh, well, I was just saying that I realized that I had not really completely dealt with systemic racism in my own life, and how that had a real effect on me. I did a research paper that then turned into a 26-minute movie, which we could talk about sometime, but Lisa saw, and that was one of the things that started us in our conversation. But in that movie, and in the paper and research that I did, I really looked at things like epigenetics, which is the how trauma is transmitted in our DNA. I was talking about that, and about the fact that the universe is about the nature of reality is really defined by stories, and that the holographic nature of the universe is such that we are also inextricably connected to one another. So I kind of put all those things together, and then came to the realization that much of the music that I have composed has been about, or is in some way connected to, racism that I've experienced in my life. It was a way, music was a way for me in many times, actually even unconsciously, of dealing with that. It was a way for me to weave into the tapestry of my art a way to heal myself. So I asked that question in this work. I was asking some pretty fundamental questions like, am I the only person who Am I the person of color who actually feels this way? Does art work this way for me, or is it the way that other people are? And I thought specifically as an orchestral composer who had mastered the white world of orchestral music, how do I turn that into my own music? How do I express my own liberation? And then it really came to a fundamental question of, is music that other Black artists do, whether they perform or compose, do they have the same questions? Do they have the same needs? Do they react in the same way? Is music by Black people fundamentally music of liberation? And that's how this whole thing got started. And it is the exploration that we'll be doing with people like Gloria and other Black artists in Lake County. So maybe I could just tell you that the answer is not there yet. The answer is probably an amalgam of all of these different experiences, and it's exciting to be part of it. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, Joanne. Clovice, I just want to make a reflection about the question that you asked Gloria about, do you think Black people should stand up and tell their stories so that the world knows what you have been living? Because I, for one, claim horrible ignorance about this. And I thought about, I can tell I'm getting feedback there, sorry. And what I thought is, we do what we can. So to understand the generational trauma that Black people have experienced here in America, and then to this moment, ask you to stand up and tell us your story so that you become part of the healing. For those that can, yes, but this is a majority white person disease that needs to be addressed. And I'm hearing again and again from the Black community that it is we white people that need to stand up and say this is enough, that this is where it ends, and to not press the traumatized part of the population to save themselves from this. And I'm not trying to step in and say, oh, we have to be white saviors, because we know damn well that that never works, right? That's part of what's gotten us into the mess that we're in right now. But to recognize who's responsible for the trauma and the racism that has been so deeply embedded in this country, and to stand up and take a role in changing that. So back to your question about, whoever can stand up and share these things, because those of us that didn't know had no idea. And when we hear them and our heart aches, it causes us to stand up and do something about it. And if you can't stand up and share those stories, we certainly don't want to create the situation where you're forced to do that. There's a part of me that gets concerned about our Black friends and community, that all of a sudden they're on the spotlight now, and all this pressure to make this shift and change. And it's like, well, that, on top of the trauma of all the generational trauma of systemic racism, it's like, what is that putting on top of it? So, I guess the gratitude is that you have the capacity to step up and do that, and be the people in the public at this time and sharing your stories. And for those that can't, whatever works for you in your healing is what I think we need to create the space for. So it's just my reflection.
I think
Gloria? Joanne, thank you. Gloria, did you want to say something about that? I do, but I was thinking maybe you would like to.
I think that you're so right. And more than anything, we have to do something about it. Talking about it is okay. It's good. It really is. But we have to spend time on how to come together. And because that is the biggest problem right now. Some people will never admit that they're wrong, and we don't even care about them. But I mean, we care, but we can't really change their minds. I don't think we can change their minds. But the ones that feel like you do, we can do something. And it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, Joanne, I would like to respond by saying that, you know, it was something that we touched on, Gloria and I did, about this vulnerability, feeling vulnerable about even talking about these things. We were raised not to talk about it. I mean, when you think about, you know, we just touched on the fact that it was against the law to make white people feel uncomfortable. I mean, you know, this is ingrained, right? And it makes us feel very strange and odd. I mean, it makes us feel like, well, you know, if I talk about this, you're going to see how different I am. And when you see how different I am, I'm going to seem like a Klingon to you. But the point is that I believe, I very strongly, firmly believe this, that after all this time, you know, I made this reference to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. That was 58 years ago. And we actually have not made much progress, in my opinion. And as a matter of fact, now we're talking about voter suppression, like we do gerrymandering. We are talking about social justice issues that really we should have gotten beyond. And now, one of the reasons why it's so important to talk about these things, and the reason why I'm out there, and thank God for people like Gloria, is because I actually frankly think that we've run out of time. We lost that race. And now is the time to speak, because if we don't, freedom is going to be redefined as loss of privilege.
That's very well said. Can you hear me? Oh, there it is. So then what I see is, like, my role and other people's role is to create the conditions where these stories can be shared and known and heard and healed, and then to take action in our own communities to shift and change the circumstances that created the conditions as they are. Some of us can do that, and then others will have other roles. The MAC
Absolutely.
and series in itself is part of that process of doing that, creating that container of compassion and love and kindness to be able to hear what has happened to people that we know and love. So, thank you.
Yes, Gary.
I have one question, not really a question, but what's going on in the world today. I found this article in the newspaper, it might have been a few years ago, but what they've been working on, and they have a new saying now. It's saying that the private prisons is American slavery under new management. In other words, they're finding a new way to use these private prisons in order to put these young inner city youths in prison, to keep these prisons and people that got shares in these private prisons to keep making money. So
Microphone, please. Easy.
This find a way to make these young youths eligible to go to prison by not having jobs. You know, so the biggest thing now that they're doing is to keep these prisons full. The state is getting rid of the state prisons, and they're having all these private prisons. So all these people, not only white people, they have even these big, I'm getting ready to write a book. They even have Afro celebrities that have their people that do their shares and stuff are putting their money in these private prisons. So this is what they're doing. So long as they can keep these inner city youth without any training or anything, what are they going to do? Like that song that James Brown made, if you don't work, you can't eat. So if you can't work and you can't eat, what is the next thing a person's going to do? You can't put a rat in the corner and don't feed him, don't think he's going to come out there fighting, trying to get some food. You know, so I do have a program that I'm working on, and it's a program that I'm going to be training our young inner city youth with a skill so they can be able to have money to get an apartment of their own. You can't get an apartment working for Jack in the Box or Burger King. you need a career job. And so that's what I'm doing, trying to get back, because we got a whole generation of young inner city youth don't have no father figures to lead anybody any type of way to get out of the bondage that they're in now.
Larry, that's awesome. Hold on. How can we support your work?
Well, I'm getting a website together, and I got a 501c3. So Gloria will give you more information about it if you want to worry about it. I mean, not worry about it. Support it. You know, I'm working with 6th District Council in Sacramento. Took me 12 years to get where I'm at now. I've been working on this for a while. You know, and then now with the workforce and trying to get funding from Sacramento. They got about $56 million coming in that they'll be spreading around, and I'm trying to get a hold of that money so I can do my program. In other words, I got these cubes that I make. I'm an inventor as well, so I have these cubes that I invented that I can be able to train these young inner city youth with a real skill, and I'm very particular in what I'm doing. So it'll be on the website, and I did bring a few little copies of what this program is going to look like. It's going to be 6-foot distances for the COVID. All that I put that in that program that I'm doing.
That's something to do.
Okay,
Do
thank
something
you.
about it.
Okay, so the MAC website will have a link to your endeavor so that we can support you. Because I think that as white people, so to speak, we sometimes don't know what we can do and how we can do it better and how we can contribute as much as we possibly could. Please.
This is the first time not the first time I've been here, but every time I've been here, all the people in this county so far that I've seen are very different than the outside world in Sacramento. You know, I had everybody that came here treated me with a lot of dignity.
That's good.
Color and say, oh, I'm scared.
That's good.
Everybody came and greeted me and say hello, and that makes me really feel good. I might move up here myself.
Okay.
Oh, it's Joanne again.
Nice, Joanne.
Say, one other thing we can do is to advocate the abolishment of private prisons. That is
Yeah.
just ridiculous, privatized incarceration. So,
Thank you, my savior.
And I think that Clovice's point to epigenetics, you know, his point about epigenetics and how trauma is passed down from generation to generation, and the resilience of African Americans is amazing.
Yes.
And we, as people who have been through our own little resilience with fires and so on, we can connect just on the level of what does resilience mean? And it is like a quality and a trait that requires, like, from your belly upward and onward and outward to just like make it work, you know, make it work. It's not just surviving, it's making it work. And that is something that we can support each other in, whatever color we are and whatever epigenetics we come from.
Can I add something to that? There's a really interesting thing, I think, that happens. We all know that people who are oppressing us in some way or another find creative ways to do that. They find creative ways for us to participate in our own oppression. I touched on that with Gloria, but the point is a very good one, and that is that we are all colors, all races, all ethnicities, oppressed in some way or another. And I think about the sort of social Darwinism and the Ayn Rand kind of objectivism that we see. It's the big lie that says we're not connected inextricably to one another. And I think that that things are changing. People are starting to see, we tell these stories, as I said earlier, the stories are define the nature of our reality. And I think that as people start to share, we understand that epigenetics tells us that everybody is carrying around them some trauma from the past And I think that's what we're doing as human beings now. There's some sort of a movement where we realize that we need to change. And the big lies that we keep hearing get more and more ridiculous. And I think it's just a matter of calling those lies out, taking back our democracy, taking back this idea that we're all connected to one another and to our planet. And I think the resilience that we are getting in touch with is something that will help us all.
And Sabrina made a comment about the power of art to connect us through resilience and through our human experience. What does it say exactly? Maybe Sabrina could read it herself.
I'm not quite sure what you mean. A little note I put in the Zoom thing about one of the glorious aspects of art is that it creates space so that we can hear one another's stories.
Yes.
And I'm especially struck by the comment that Clovice made that music is a way of sending love into the world. Art is a way of loving the world. And that Gloria's kind of conjuring us all to make works of art out of our lives, whatever we do. That feels to me the space we're trying to occupy here, that we are creating the lives and the society and the conversations that we want. That's
Indeed. And some of us are more like on the appreciator side, and we take turns of when we appreciate each other and each other's voices. And that's what's important, is hearing each other.
I would imagine we're getting near the end of this thing. I think you said 8:45, and that's about 4 minutes from now. Is it time to gracefully end our conversation? What do you think, Lisa?
Gloria is gracefully ending our conversation with music.
Well, Gloria, please provide the rollout music for us. And I am, again, so sorry I can't join you with my cello. I would love to do that. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to the incomparable Gloria Scott.
This song is for you guys. Cycles, circles, habit last, led us to our distant past, that leads us to happiness and peace and love that only we can share. And it's so wonderful to have someone as beautiful as you sharing in my life. And it's so wonderful to have someone like you.
Give it up for the beautiful, amazing Gloria Scott.
I love you all. Oh my God. I'm so grateful.
Peace all. Goodbye. Good night.